Hello, Father Con. How are you?
Hi, Adriana. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I can't believe we are at the end of Lent and we're now in Holy
No,
Week.
I know. Isn't it only just yesterday that we started talking?
It feels like it. It feels like it. And, as I look at the school year, it feels like not that long ago that it was September and we're gearing up to what will
Mhm.
school look like in this. And many months
Absolutely.
later, here we are. We've been doing it.
Absolutely. This past week, I was involved in several conversations talking about the new school year beginning in September, and I think, oh my God, it's only a few months away.
I
Yeah,
know.
and looking at the fall.
It's remarkable. So what gives
Hmm
me hope right now is we're moving forward. Yes, Hamilton is going into another lockdown on Monday.
hmm
And as much as that's challenging me at my very core, I keep thinking, okay, well, we've come this far.
hmm
We'll just keep going. Like time just keeps moving forward.
Absolutely. And I think we have to keep, I think some of the news over the last 2 days has been a little concerning about the numbers of vaccines that are not being taken.
Mm,
So we really, really have to work on that. I have a little note in my letter to parishioners this weekend, just reminding them that for their sake and for the sake of everybody else, we need to take that vaccine in the
yes, we
same way that people had to do all the things that they had to do in the Great Flu in the 1918, 1919.
do. Hmm.
That I think was it 30,000 spots were not taken in Toronto, our neighbors, for the vaccine over the past week. That's troubling,
That is troubling. That's very
especially
troubling
especially with the variant that's going around.
because it makes me wonder what will the next school year look like, or what will life look like if some people are
Oh
vaccinated and some are not?
my God, Adriana, we cannot go back to what we started off with in September. I mean,
Yeah, the remote learning,
oh
I'll say right now,
God, oh Lord.
it's not ideal. It's not
Hmm
ideal. The kids are not learning, they're not engaged. Many are cheating,
hmm
and they're just not learning.
Yeah, and but all around, taking the whole picture into account.
Yeah.
Oh my, it people are. You can tell in people, even here in Halton, where we have a little bit more freedom. You can tell that people are coming to that exhaustion point where
Yes.
they're.
And of course, the mental health, right? So
Mm,
I've been running virtual grade 9 retreats, and it's right across the board, right across
mm,
all grades. They're unmotivated, right? It's just how do we get yeah, I'm just anyway. So
yeah,
that's been my week, but I'm we keep moving forward. So,
good,
you
good.
know, like we've come this far.
I know. And so you're all set for Holy Week for the school and the experiences
Yes, I've got some
you're
work to
being
do
able
this
to.
week, but we
Good,
are set. We are set.
good.
Yes, I'm lining up some students. We're going to do our Holy Week service on Thursday as part of our morning prayer.
Nice. Good.
Yeah,
I
so
think that's
I'm
when most of the schools are doing it.
yeah. So that's so yeah, it's busy. It's good. Of course, we're all looking forward to our new March break in April,
Yeah. What date does it begin?
the second week of Easter.
Oh,
So the
perfect.
week of April 12th, I believe,
So you go back after
for
Easter
for
for a
four
week
days,
or for four
and
days.
and
And
because
then it's
Easter Monday is
Confirmation.
a holiday,
Oh, perfect.
so we go back for
Oh,
four
perfect.
days, and then we're off for a week.
And, hopefully the weather will be perfect and it will be good for everyone.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
good.
How are
Good.
things at the parish?
Yeah,
Looking
things
busy?
are good. Things are good. We're all set for Holy Week. Of course, everything is pared down.
Hmm.
And yeah, we're all ready to go.
Oh, good, good.
Unfortunately, you have to be registered to get into the church. So, and I hate that idea
I
that
know.
but however, I just keep thinking that in 1 year's time, this will all be a distant. Oh, please God, this will all be a distant memory.
Yes, I know. I know. My parish is doing. You need a card to get in, and you pick them up
Mm,
this week if you want to go for the Triduum.
yeah, very good.
So So this week, we've talked a lot about prayer the past number of weeks, and this week we are changing it up. We're going to talk about Holy Week because Holy Week has so many themes. So it's rich in meaning, and the journey from Palm Sunday to Easter, it's a big roller coaster of meaning. So we're just going to talk about the various
Wonderful
themes about Holy Week. So what comes to your mind, Father Con, when you think of Holy Week and just that whole journey?
And actually, the conversation ties in beautifully, I think, with a lot of what we've been talking about over the last few weeks. I think the overarching theme, or the big theme for me, is prayer and silence, and it's because it's Holy Week. It's intentional. There's and there's a lovely movement during the week. Of course, it begins starting this evening and tomorrow with the liturgies for Palm Sunday, which are about rejoicing and a lot of noise, which is interesting, because Jesus is welcomed into Jerusalem. We read that there are two sections of the gospel. The first is Jesus coming into Jerusalem, and the second part is the reading of the Passion. And it's interesting that the Passion ends with the burial of Jesus, because we have to wait for 1 week to hear the other piece, which is the resurrection. So it's interesting that even I've said at the beginning that it's about prayer and silence. It actually begins with a lot of noise, and then after this weekend it calms down. There's the gathering of the disciples and Jesus, the followers of Jesus, in the upper room on Thursday, and it's interesting that for Holy Thursday, the focus of the liturgy, which everybody places the focus directly on what happens at the table, but the great image that we're left with on Holy Thursday is the image of the washing of the feet, what in the ancient church is called the mandatum, which leads to the eating at the table, that lovely exchange in the gospel, which is read on Holy Thursday, between Peter and Jesus. Lord, you can't wash my feet. And Jesus saying, well, Peter, if I can't wash your feet, you can't have any part with me. In other words, Peter, because they're celebrating the Passover, it's all done in the context of the Passover. Peter, then why are we eating together? If you don't know what it is to wash feet, we have very little in common.
Actually, as you say that, what comes to mind? And I've encountered this through, 18 plus years of being a chaplain, and, when we serve and people go through different things. There's Peter, who's about, Jesus is coming up. He's looked up to Jesus. Jesus is the rabbi. Jesus is the one. He's the teacher. He's the one who has been challenged by other religious leaders in public, and he silenced them and he's healed. And, clearly he is someone significant. So here's Jesus, this teacher, coming over to wash his feet. And what I imagine is happening is Peter is uncomfortable having someone serve him. And yet, with Jesus saying, if you don't let me wash your feet, you have no part in me. It's almost like Jesus is saying, if you don't let yourself be vulnerable and let me serve you, if you can't go through that experience to know that vulnerability,
absolutely,
then you won't really know what my mission's about.
Absolutely. I had the most incredible experience of the washing of feet in a women's prison, the women's prison in Kitchener. My God, 22, 23, 24 years ago. It was the first Easter that the women had moved in over the fall, winter, and the early part of the spring. And so we went on Thursday afternoon to celebrate Holy Thursday, because we couldn't do all of the liturgies in the prison with the women. So it was felt that the Holy Thursday would be an important one to do there. So we went in, and there was a group of volunteers, women volunteers, who came with me. And most of the women who came for the service in the chapel had never seen this before.
Really?
Had never seen it. But there were only about 12, 13, 14 of them who came anyway. And I decided at the last minute, well, let's wash everybody's feet. And of course, you have to explain what it is that you're doing. And I explained, that it's in the gospel, and we've just heard this lovely dialogue with Peter. But I said, but just let what happens happen for the washing of the feet. And of course, I'm wearing my alb and stole, and there's a big bowl of water and a big jug there's a big bowl and a big jug of water, and there are lots of towels. And I remember coming to this one woman. She was a very large lady, and she hadn't taken her shoes or socks off. She says, "You're not going to wash my feet. You're not going to wash my feet." And I said, "Well, I've done everybody else. Like, why don't I just wash one of your feet?" And she kind of hummed and I said, "Okay," she said, "we'll do one, only one though, but don't tickle me." And so I washed her feet, and it was, I must say, it was very moving. Some of the women were in tears. Some of them were in tears. However, after I'd washed her feet, she was the last one. After I washed her foot, her single foot, I took the bowl back and I put it down, and then I sat down. And she was the one who said, "And who's going to wash your feet?" And I says, "No, well, we don't do that." And she said, "What do you mean you don't do it?" She said, "What, are you special or something?" And I said, "Well, I'm kind of the one who's leading all of this." I said, "It's not. I've never had my feet washed." Well, she says, "Well, take your shoes and socks off.
Oh my
I'm
God.
going to wash your feet. I'm going to wash your feet."
Wow.
And Adrienne, I was like a sobbing child in the experience. And I remember going back to the parish and having to celebrate that evening in the parish. It was in the university community. And what it changed completely. That it actually gets to your point of I'm kind of above this. I don't do this. I do it to you, but it's not until you have it done to you that the import or the importance of what you've just done, or what has just been done to you, the importance of that for you. And of course now, every year, except for last year, we have a photograph of Pope Francis washing prisoners' feet, washing the feet of women, washing the feet of children, washing the feet of the sick.
Yeah.
And it's become a very, 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 very powerful teaching about what it means to serve.
And, I reflect. Obviously, I reflect. I'm a chaplain. How can I not reflect? I'm drawn in my faith. When we are the ones doing the serving and the looking after, there's a control factor. We're in control. When other people are tending to us, we lose control, and it makes us vulnerable. And I think that is why we might resist. But if we take to heart Jesus's words to Peter, if you don't let me wash your feet, you have no share in me. It's almost like he's saying, if you don't allow yourself to feel vulnerable and let me take care of you, then you won't know anything about what I'm doing.
Absolutely.
And I think that's it. Because the whole journey, when he's, carrying the cross, when he's being, he's put on trial, he's sentenced to death, and then that whole torture, and then walking to Calvary, and then, being nailed on the cross, like how more vulnerable can you get? You are at the hands of the state, and they are they're crucifying you. And the other thing that I'm taken for me with Holy Week, another big theme, and I may have mentioned it before in our conversation, is, and we see this from what we know of Mary and Jesus, they do not give back in kind. Jesus gets spit in his face and, derogatory comments and mocked. And Jesus, being the Son of God, could have easily sought vengeance and retaliated. But he's showing us how it is to be human, that we need to embrace our vulnerability and not get caught in this back and forth and this vengeance, because, that's not the work of God. But that vulnerability, and to not give back in kind. So when people are mean and cruel, don't hit them back with the same, rise above it. And that's hard. And then Jesus is our example.
Absolutely.
How profound, like how deep of a character, how deep in your faith must you be to withstand that kind of evil and hatred and horrible acts, and then forgive them, Father, they know not what they do.
It's the difference. It's the difference between as a chaplaincy leader, the difference between talking about going, for example, talking about the experience of going out to feed the hungry, and going out to feed the hungry.
Yeah.
And I think that's when going back to Pope Francis, especially in Laudato Si, when he talks about going out to the peripheries, it means everybody goes out to the peripheries. And I remember again going back to my time in Waterloo. We got university students involved in the breakfast program for the Out of the Cold program.
Yep.
And it was, because you work with young people, you don't just ask them to go and do it, you go and do it with them.
Yes.
And honest to God, Adriana, it was the most, I found that this was at 6 o'clock in the morning. So imagine university students. So there's a small group getting up at 6 o'clock on a Monday morning to make porridge and breakfast for the guests who were in part of the Out of the Cold program. And I would never have imagined that would be a prayerful experience. But there's a silence, because it's so early in the morning. There's a silence in the work in which you're doing, and there's and then the way in which you serve. And I remember we would always sit down afterwards and have coffee and have the same porridge that the Out of the Cold people were eating, and it was a profoundly different experience, and a very, very, even though nothing is said, it is deeply, deeply moving and deeply, deeply prayerful. And that's that is one of the beautiful things about Holy Thursday evening. The chant which accompanies the washing of the feet is, "Do you know what I have done for you?"
Oh, are you thinking of the David Hawes?
That's lovely. One of them. There are many different settings of it.
Yes. Oh, that's a beautiful song.
Now you go and do the same. Now you go and do the same.
Yeah.
I was at I was at the nursing home, Wyndham Manor, just up the street on Thursday. My first time in well over a year to go in to this place. They had 21 deaths from COVID between November and the end of January.
Oh my gosh, that's a
And
lot of deaths.
it's a lot of death. It's a lot of death. And I went in because somebody, because I've had the vaccine and I feel more comfortable now to go in. And we did prayers, especially for those who were dying, online on Zoom or FaceTime. But this time I decided, no, I'm going to go in. I'm going to face my fear and go in. Actually, I could go in. Before that, you weren't allowed into the place. On my way out, because I know some of the staff, I said, I said hello, and some of them were quite tearful, and they said, you're the first outsider we've seen in here in months.
Wow.
In months.
Wow.
Apart from a relative, because one relative is allowed to go and visit. And some of them, I'm using this line a lot lately. How are you doing? How are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
And it just opens. It opens a door, and it opened a door on Thursday, and oh my God! And it dawned on me while I was walking home that just so close to the church, we had people in a war zone. I know that some people will say that that's a little overly dramatic, but 21 people died, and at one point, most people in the residence had COVID. And they were the loyal and faithful servants who stayed there. Mm-hmm. One nurse, as I was leaving, he said, Father, would you say, and then 3 of them came over, and he says, Father, would you say a prayer with us? Because it's been really tough in here. I said, absolutely. I was shaken. I was really, really shaken. Go and do what I have done for you. Go into the periphery. Go to the periphery. Go. It's up the street. It's up the street. Mm-hmm. And my fear kept me from. I do feel embarrassed that the staff. I didn't find a way to ask the question, "How are you doing?" And I think that's one of the reasons why Holy Week is so very important. Is that it should humble us. Mm-hmm. to ask ourselves the question, and how am I being of service in the wider community, in the wider world. I have a little note in my letter about it this weekend because I don't want us to forget these brave people.
Yeah.
Paid terribly.
Yeah.
Paid terribly. But they stuck it out.
They're there.
They stuck it out.
It's interesting when you talk about, working with people and saying, okay, let's go feed the hungry, and the importance of doing it with them. For many years, I would take small groups of students to St. Francis Table in Toronto. Mm. And I like St. Francis Table because they serve their patrons restaurant style. So they come in, they do pay $1, and Brother John greets them at the door, gives them their ticket. They sit down. There's 10 tables in this small little place, and they come and sit down at a table, and then we serve them, like we're their wait staff. Now, there's no menu. There's usually, there is a menu, but they don't have options. It's just whatever the chef creates. But it's not bad. Sometimes it's soup and fries, or soup and sandwiches, or sandwiches and fries, or it's a decent meal. And then we serve from 12 to 1. And at 1 o'clock, Brother John rings the bell. He's like, okay, you stop, you finish what you're doing, and then it's your turn to eat. And then we go sit, and sometimes, we're sitting with the patrons. And that's when the conversations happen. Oh, yeah. And the students, sometimes they see families coming in there with strollers. There was one time the students met a 21-year-old who was coming for food, and just hearing their stories. And then on the GO train back to the school, that's when we would debrief after a lot of people have come off, and then we'd sit together and debrief. And I'd say, so, what are your initial thoughts? And often they were like, they're just like us.
Yeah.
They just got a bad turn in life.
Yeah.
You know?
We have before the COVID here at St. Andrews, we were in the first 6 months, 8 months of a relationship with the program at the Masno Doors in Hamilton at St. Patrick's
Yes.
Church.
Yes.
And the first or second, I think it was the second time we went down with a group of volunteers just to familiarize ourselves with the program, the Friday program, where they barbecue hamburger and hot dogs. The second time we were down, everybody had been served, and we were just standing around. And there was a little note by the barbecue saying, "St. Andrew's Parish Oakville is sponsoring lunch today." And this gentleman came over to where I was standing, and he said, "You from St. Andrews?" I said, "Yes." I said, "Yeah, I'm from St. Andrews." And of course, where St. Andrews is one of the wealthiest communities in
Yes.
the diocese and in the country. And he said, "I used to sing in the choir at St. Andrews."
Wow.
And I said,
Wow.
"Oh," I said, and actually there were some volunteers who were members of the choir.
Yeah.
And then he began to tell a little bit of his story, and oh my God, oh my,
Yeah.
like you don't know. You don't know.
You
It's
don't
how
know.
are you? It's like asking the question, how are you doing? You open the door, and
Yeah.
there it is.
And when we ask, and we are to ask, we are to care for each other. But when we ask that question, we have to be prepared and
Absolutely.
be judgment free, not place any judgment, and to honor their story and to learn and listen.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I think that, and I think that that's what leads beautifully that whole idea of service leads beautifully to Good Friday, which is not about, which is if Friday is about anything, Friday is spending time at the cross,
Yes.
because that's
Yes.
the symbol of Friday.
Yes, that
The
is.
reading of the reading of the Passion is very, very important, and there are beautiful scenes in the reading of the Passion. Jesus before Pilate
Yes.
is a powerful. It's a powerful scene.
Yeah.
But to me, it's that procession to the cross that, and I like to think of it as to encourage people to think about what is it that I have to leave at the cross. What now that I'm coming to the cross, what must I leave here? There's a lovely tradition in the Orthodox Church that on their Good Friday they build, after they venerate the cross, they build the tomb, a model of the tomb.
Mm-hmm.
And from Friday evening, when the tomb has been created, until Saturday evening, when they celebrate the vigil, you have the opportunity to visit the tomb, and you'll notice that a lot of people leave little notes, like at the Western Wall in
Yeah.
Jerusalem. They leave little notes, and the spirituality of going to the tomb is that whatever you take to the tomb, you leave it there.
Interesting.
And when you turn, after you've left your burden at the tomb, or you've left whatever it is you take to the tomb, you leave it, and you cannot go back with it.
Interesting.
You
Interesting.
you have to lay down your burdens. You have to lay down whatever it is. And I think seeing the cross on Good Friday as it's a place of leveling in many, many respects. That if there's something that prevents us or hinders us from being able to give ourselves in that service that we're called to do on Thursday,
Mm-hmm.
then it's at the cross on Friday that we ask if there's something that prevents us from doing that, we've got to leave it here. What so that we're free. Remember, we were talking about Lazarus last week. I think it was last week, and that lovely scene in the story of Lazarus when Lazarus comes out of the tomb, and Jesus says, "Unbind him and let him go free." So, what must we be unbound from, and set free from, so that we are free to go and to do?
You know, you're talking about the procession to the cross on Good Friday. And I've always, I don't know, I'm sure people can relate to this. I often struggle with that moment. I mean, I like it, but I struggle because whenever people say, oh, you know, God loves us so much that he died for you. And I hear of stories of parents in war-torn countries and in extreme poverty in other parts of the world who are freely giving up their kids so that they have a better chance, or they're getting in front of the bullet, or here, let me die, but let my child go, you know, let my child live. So I always say, shouldn't we be saying that God loves us so much that God conquers death for us?
Absolutely. And that's what the cross is.
And so when I go up to the cross, I struggle in accepting it because it's like there's something deep in me that doesn't want to acknowledge my own vulnerability and my own suffering. And then when I do, well, I'm in safe company here. When I do, you know, there's usually tears involved. And, you know, and I think that's the freedom. We let go of control, acknowledge that, hey, we're all in this together. We all have something. We all have something that is burdening us, some kind of suffering, whether it's chronic physical illness or pain, chronic mental illness or chronic mental pain, or whatever, or loss of some type that we just never really dealt with, whether it's a loss of a relationship or, you know, someone died. Acknowledging the cross acknowledges our vulnerability. And I think then we relinquish control in trying to control the vulnerability. And then once we let go, we let God, there's room for God to come in and then lead us to the empty tomb.
Absolutely. I mean, doesn't that take us back again to our conversation about prayer? What we're seeking to do in our prayer life, in our spiritual life, is we're seeking the freedom that you're talking about, and that it's the freedom that where we've experienced that being unbound and set free, and I think the letting go, the letting go of control, it's the letting go of our own ego. And
that's exactly it.
It's about going. It's about being dependent in another way on another entity. I don't know. Have you seen the cross in the sanctuary at St. Dominic's Church here in Oakville?
I probably have. I've been there.
It's huge. It's a huge cross. It's one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite scenes, the Calvary scenes, because it's both Good Friday and Easter Sunday, and it's a large wooden cross, but standing on a step in front of the cross is the figure of the risen Christ in a white. I don't know, is it marble or plaster, whatever it's made of. I love that symbol, because while the cross is a symbol of death, it's also the symbol of resurrection. And we're not on Good Friday. We come to Good Friday because we have, in a way, experienced resurrection in our baptism, and we come, you know, that lovely ancient phrase of the early church: We are an Easter people, and Alleluia is our song. Even though we haven't sung Alleluia for weeks because we're in the season of Lent, we're coming to the cross and we're embracing the cross, we're kissing the cross, we're reverencing the cross, because it is the symbol of our liberation and freedom.
Yes.
And that lovely figure of Jesus in that cross, that scene at St. Dominic's, I think it's a beautiful, beautiful illustration of dying and rising. And in our spiritual life, there is that experience of dying and rising constantly.
Yes.
Constantly.
There's a
Over and over again.
lovely line in the Gospel of John. It's in the beginning. I'm trying to remember, is it chapter 3 or chapter 4? It's when Jesus calls Philip, I believe, the few. And there's a line in there, I must decrease and you must increase. So that's my prayer when I always light a candle. May I decrease, and Lord, may you increase in me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that's a good note to end.
And maybe we can pick up Easter Sunday, and
we will
next time.
We will talk about the movement beyond Good Friday and talk about the beauty of Easter Vigil.
Absolutely.
And Easter. So thank you for joining us, and have a very meaningful Holy Week journey.
All right.